Aloha, everyone. Welcome to my channel and welcome back for my subscribers. My name is Marissa Indigo, and I am the founder of Divine DNA Blueprint Mystery School. I have created quite a few systems that have just come through me to support humanity for this shift. I was born in 1987. I'm an Indigo Blu-ray, and this video is being recorded in March of 2022 in the peak of the shift. My sole mission here on planet Earth for this time has been to serve as a conduit of divine bridging between the metaphysical, the ancient, the shamanic, the indigenous, and the modern moment. And I do this with all of the different outlets that I present through, whether it's yoga or Ayurveda. Today, we're going to be talking about the foundations of conscious parenting. So I have been consciously parenting my child since before conception as her soul came through. As such, I have been very excited and just waiting eagerly for the exact moment for God to tell me, direct me when to share this information. So here we are about 14 years later since the beginning of all of this, of my own journey. So here we are in March of 2022. And I'm going to try to simplify this immense topic to the best of my ability. There are only certain things that we can discuss here on a public platform, which is now heavily censored as YouTube. So I'm going to cover the basics here of the sacred, bringing the sacred back into our homes, into our hearts with our children, because the family and the nuclear family is the core unit of society. And as we are seeing right now, the systems are collapsing, the paradigm is dissolving, and it is getting more and more chaotic outside in the outer world as this is happening. And this is the perfect moment for us to come home to ourselves, to our truth, to our peace, having the faith and the trust in the navigation of this process, as it is harrowing at times, yet knowing that we came here for this. We came here for this. So I'd like to begin just with the topic of conscious parenting. What is conscious parenting? This, as it comes through me, as it has been divinely guided for me through my daughter's team. She has an immense angelic team that is part of her soul, that essentially pre-conception was giving me guidance of what to do, how she was going to be birthed. So when we talk about the foundations of conscious parenting, where are we going with this? This is such a massive topic. Conscious parenting involves every aspect of our lives. It also involves reparenting ourselves. Most of us have had trauma in our parental matrilineal and patrilineal lines, because that's all part of the game. That's all part of the program, is that society in the Kali Yuga would come to such a far deviation from the sacred through the technocracy and all of this modernity that is full of illusion and deception of what is natural, what is real, what is soul, right? So here we are, the most deviated we could ever be from the divine, from Mother Earth and the goddess, and all of this incredible native wisdom that we all still carry within our DNA. We want to talk about the fact that each and every one of us right now is an ambassador of the ancestors. All of the codes are carried within our DNA. We can start to see these parallels going on, these fractal mirrors reflecting distortions back to us out in society, breaking everyone open and awake. It is really no longer safe, if you will, to have our children in any of the mainstream systems. It's becoming more and more and more obvious that the matrix distracted us with the stress over things like money and survival, when there was a point in time where we didn't need money. So this systems breakdown has been in place since the beginning, really, of the Industrial Revolution, much more rapidly, right? Because then we started to have all of this stuff with industry and capitalism, which then money becomes the centrifugal force in everyone's reality. And it's all the slave matrix system, and therefore we cannot even be present to our children. So essentially, the disintegration of the sacred core or village, the sacred crystalline village templates have been under duress since the Middle Ages, when the feudal system began. Because up until this time, the feudal system was maybe 1400s. People lived on the land. They lived in the sacred village template. There were elders with the children, the entire tribe. In ancient days, the entire tribe was present to support the raising of children. So even in the modern day, we still have this term, it takes a village. Yes, it does take a village. And right now, with the way modern society is constructed, they've got each family unit separated off, living in boxes with all of these different distortions. And we're completely separated from the multiple generations. So our children are not getting the presents from us as we're scrambling to survive with the money system. And they're also not getting the support from our grandparents, from their grandparents, from our grandparents, from our parents. So because this is such a massive topic, I'm just going to do my best to simplify it. And we're going to do some private Q&As and also private webinars for you if you wish to go deeper on these topics, for us to connect more directly, because this involves everything from our health and our bodily autonomy and food and so much more deep esoteric wisdom that cannot be shared on a public platform such as this. Where to begin? The most important thing to consider is that right now in this moment, all that matters is our presence. For those of us who do not have the option yet, right now, in this moment, maybe to quit our job and take our kids and go run and live on the land somewhere, right? I don't know how possible that is for everyone. Personally, I think that's what all of us want more than anything, and I'm definitely ready for it myself. And it will come in time. But in the meantime, what we can do is to be present with our children. So the most important first step for the foundations of conscious parenting is to give ourselves as parents what it is that we need to then feel calm and in our peace and in our open state to be able to be there and to be present for our children. Because if we're spinning and we're chaotic within ourselves, not only can we not be present for anyone else or even hear them or really feel into what their needs are, but we're also transmitting that to our children. So then they are in that chaos as well. So that would be the first piece, is taking care of ourselves so that we can then take care of everyone else. And peer presence is one of the most important and just magnanimous forces that we can hold within ourselves in our daily life. Because if we are present with our children, they're going to feel that. They're going to feel stabilized and secure and safe, especially for those of us who still have children in the system, which I think is the majority of us. I ripped my daughter out of the public school system, and we are homeschooling right now until we can find a school that feels safe and aligned and is free from distortions that are being projected upon our kids right now. So even if you do have children that are still in the system, if you are present with them and have daily conversations with them, and they really know that you care, and you can do this through small motions of, of care, just making their lunch, checking in with them with their homework, with their friends, helping to set up play dates and excursions out in nature with them and their friends. It's a lot more about actions speaking louder than words, and that's going to come from pure presence. So the best way to be present with our children is to be present with ourselves. So even if you have the 9-to-5 work day or hectic work days, or you're a single parent like myself with a lot of things on your plate, when you get up in the morning and when you go to bed at night, those are your times to regrid yourself, to come back to center, to have your prayers, to have your affirmations, whatever it is that you need to witness to find the peace again within yourself, to then have a full cup to share with your children. Presence with our children is the most important thing, because they feel that stability and that connection. Our children are pieces of ourselves, but they are individuated, meaning that we share DNA, meaning that everything that we feel, everything that we're running through in our fields and our minds and our hearts, they are feeling as well. So it is extremely important that we find peace and health and balance within ourselves, so that that alone does not unconsciously naturally transfer to our children. So self-care is the most important piece right now for the individual parent, however that works for you, whatever that means for you. I've written a book and shared that self-care through the wisdom of Ayurveda. For those who are busy householders and you only have 2 to 3 minutes to 5 minutes to care for yourself, well, guess what? There's practices for that. So time doesn't need to be, or allowed to be, an excuse. So self-care is definitely a priority here, because how could we be present for someone else if we're not present for ourselves? So this is a huge piece, is self-care, whatever that means for you, whatever is possible. A 10-minute walk in nature can completely shift your energy and your mood and how you feel. And therefore, you're bringing that fresh energy to your children. So that's one of the most important first steps. It starts with the parents, right? The next piece for the parents is self-parenting or self-care, reparenting ourselves. Those of us that have had trauma or just not a perfect childhood. Even if you've had a perfect childhood, well, hey, guess what? You're in this matrix reality with all these other things going on, and we're always needing to come back online and come back to ourselves and come back to a place of pure peace and fullness before we could serve anyone else, before we can even function. So those are the most important pieces to begin just as a parent, just taking care of yourself so that you can take care of others. So the self-care piece for us as parents is kind of a never-ending journey of presence, of seeing where we are each day and what our needs are. It's just part of the practice of conscious living. So the individual parent comes first in this regard because we have to stabilize ourselves. This is like the hierarchy of right relationship. It's the divine God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it, creation, and then you, and then the family, and then your work, and so on and so on. So it's very important that we do the self-care first so that we are mindful and do not continue to pass on karmic issues to our children. A lot of people have not been able to heal their traumas, and then they pass them on to their children, and then we're creating this chain of pain that's just looping on, and each of us is responsible to clear that shit up for ourselves from our lineage going back so that our children don't have to deal with those issues. All of that being said, it's also really important to consider that this is an individual process. So that's why each of us have unique fingerprints. Your journey is going to be completely unique, and so is that of your children. And it is really important to consider the fact that we all chose each other on a soul level to incarnate together and to complete whatever it is, to complete and to regenerate and to create all new magic in our DNA through our combination. So I just want to stress that, because I think a lot of people judge themselves for not being perfect or for having issues. And then, oh, I messed up my child with my issues. You have to understand that we all signed up for these things together, and there's a reason why everything has happened up to this point. So the reason that you're here now to see a content such as this, you're drawn to this at soul level, is because you're ready to make another shift, another layer of shift. So it's just so important. I just want to emphasize to not have an excessive amount of self-blame or guilt or shame about previous transgressions and mistakes that we have made in our unconsciousness. It's all part of the journey. If we were going to get everything perfectly, then we wouldn't have to come here onto this planet and incarnate, into a body to do all of this. So I just want to support you in not bashing yourself for not being perfect. And that, at the end of the day, if you put your head on your pillow at night and you know that you tried your best every single day, that's perfect. That's perfect. There's nothing more that you could do. Okay, so self-care also supports us in being able to lead by example, because when we are in our peace and our heart is open and we're able to effectively communicate, everything is a lesson in live time. So our children are always watching us. They're always feeling us. They're always listening. And everything, every encounter, every conversation, everything that they see us do is teaching them. That's how they learn by example. And it's up to us to be present within ourselves and in the present moment and in our experience to really be showing up as our highest form, to then show this to our children. Conversely, when we're going through it, whether it's a dark night of the soul kind of experience or we're processing some stuff and we're not feeling very well, it's very important to show our children that life, to be completely realistic with them, is to show them that some days you may not feel very well, but it's about showing up, and it's about taking care of yourself and taking care of others and balancing yourself and your energy and your mood by that self-care piece of bringing in what it is that you need to feel better that day, to take care of yourself. It's really important that our children understand the whole range of the human experience. We could be sad one day, and we could describe that with younger children with the weather. It's one of the wonderful things that I loved when my daughter was in kindergarten through about fourth grade was, what's the weather today? Is the sky cloudy for you today? Is it sunny? Is it raining? Is there a rainbow? Just these little lovely symbolic examples so that children can start to own their emotions and not be afraid of them or not stuff them down. This is really important because this is teaching them how to function and how to really master the human experience at soul level. They already have all of the tools and all of the wisdom. We just need to support them in connecting and reconnecting to it. And that's what we're doing too. So essentially, we're all doing the same work of presence and coming back to our authenticity, right? Deprogramming ourselves as the matrix continues to dissolve. And this is what's causing a lot of pressure right now on everybody. We're feeling it. We're definitely feeling the chaos. But if you have done your self-care and taken good care of yourself and given yourself what you need, and then you do lovely activities that are you're present with your children, it's really going to be supportive of them as well, because the family is the foundation of society. So when you have created a rock solid foundation of peace and love and stability and open communication in your home, then the children carry that with them when they go out into the world, even if the world is chaotic, even if they're still in the system right now, the mainstream public school system or any kind of mainstream system as everything is shifting. If they have the strength of the family, they're fine. They're going to be just fine out there in the world because they have that power, that sense of empowerment, that sense of I am loved and cared for, and I'm seen and I'm heard and I'm worthy. So if you notice, a lot of these themes could be bringing up chords within you because maybe you didn't receive these things from your own parents because they didn't receive them from their parents, and so on and so on and so on. That's why each of us is an ambassador of the ancestors to clear up the karmas of the past through ourselves, reparenting ourselves, loving ourselves, giving ourselves what we need, because that's not separate from the parenting process, right? What we give to ourselves, we're also going to give to others. The next thing I wanted to talk about is being present with your children. Once we've given ourselves what we needed, then we can be present with them, and you'll feel, you know, especially as mothers, we're extremely intuitive. We have carried this being within our body. We've brought the soul forth into the physical and birthed it onto this plane. And so our children are always a piece of us, even when they're outside of us, even when they're fully grown. We always can feel where our children are. We know. And it's very important to check in with them and establish communication. So this is a really important thing I want to talk about now. Maybe some of you are just starting the conscious parenting process because your own healing is coming into play and your consciousness is expanding and seeing how you want to also share this with your children, how you want to maybe open the lines of communication with your children. And it doesn't matter how old your children are. It's never too late. That's one of the things that's really important to understand. And again, this is going to be individualized based on your own soul contracts and agreements, and how open someone is. Let's say you have a fully grown child who is really bitter and shut down. Their heart is shut down because of everything you've been through together. Well, then, you know, hopefully it'll work out, but you can keep trying by showing up and trying to establish the lines of communication. You know, that being said, not everyone is going to have a perfect relationship with their children. It's not really about perfection. It's about consciousness and doing our best to continue to show up authentically as our best self. And if others can receive us, great. And if they can't, well, then that's just the way it is for now. And we just keep trying. So open communication. Let's say your child is in their teens and they don't want anything to do with us, or, you know, they want to be with their friends all the time. Yeah, that's great, but they're not the parents, we're the parents. So what I highly recommend is this book. This is an amazing book, The Way of Counsel. And this is the second edition. This is Jack Zimmerman and Virginia Coyle. And it's an amazing resource for bringing back kind of this ancient council concept of the tribe, of the village coming together and sitting at the campfire and basically checking in with one another. And in this instance, you would have multi-generations. You've got grandparents and the parents and the children, and maybe even grandchildren and all together. And everyone is just sharing, what are they holding? What's in their heart that's maybe, you know, causing some suffering right now, and you work through it together. You offer advice. This is that wisdom sharing. This is a code share. This is why the village template is so important, and we're bringing it back into the modern world. So even if you don't live with your parents, so the kids don't have everyday access to their grandparents, you can still do a Zoom call. If you don't have biological grandparents anymore because they've transitioned on, well, there are elders in your community that are just waiting to serve as the wisdom keepers that the elders are in your neighborhood. So there's always a way. There's no limits. The only limits are those that we impose ourselves and our belief system. So I'm just going to nip that in the bud right now, because this is about the children, and there are no limits, and there are nothing is out of anyway. So with this book, there's an amazing concept here of having family meetings where you get together and you sit with one another and you just share what's on your mind and break it down and help to soften it and bring wisdom in at appropriate levels depending on the ages of the children. And it's just really incredible. There are also amazing rites of passage for boys and girls as they're coming into puberty. These are a lot of things that are missing in modern society. Is essentially we're relying on the state to nurture and develop and guide our children as they transition into adults, which I find very odd. And we need to reclaim our ancient practices of the ancient village. Even if you're a two-person family, like me and my daughter, I am mother and father as a single parent, but I hold both of those roles, feeling into when they need to be flexed, right? So even if the children are resistant to this, it's really important to share, hey, there's a lot going on, so let's get together and talk about it. A lot of these practices, as we implement them, may be weird, right? If the conscious parenting is new to your family, doesn't matter. Just say whatever you need to say that is, supportive and loving and firm, and saying, this is what we're going to do. And even if the children are resistant, especially the teens, they're going to start to feel better. They're going to start to notice a difference. They're going to start to feel more connected and feel more cared for. So it's really important as the kids get into the older ages and are maybe more resistant, that we continue to hold that boundary and say, well, this is what we're doing. This is our activity as a family. We're going to come together and share, whatever is going on. And again, you kind of regulate that based on how old the children are. Okay. So the way of counsel, I just want to read the back of this because it is so moving, just to show you how presence and how open communication can just create shifts really overnight in our family. And that passes into the community, right? Because how the energy flows is the parents and the children as a nuclear unit, right, in society, and then that passes out into the community. So this child who is really self-assured and confident and feels that sense of stability and nurturing at home is going to take that out into the community and into their classroom, and that's going to ripple through this level of consciousness with their peers, which is very exciting. And ideally we can connect with other parents who are also wanting to consciously connect with their children. I don't know about you, but for me in California, Southern California, I was pretty much the town we were in, doing this all by myself. People were still pretty much in the program of, the 9 to 5, get the kids to school and do activities on the weekends together, which is great, but not really going deeper. A lot of people just weren't drawn to that yet. I think this is where we're going now, however, as a culture, which is exciting. It's really exciting because we're returning to the sacred ancient village template now. We're starting to see, yeah, this is not working. What can we do? So I just want to always share that uplifting information that, guess what? We have a whole repository of wisdom from the ancient ones, right? Thank God we still have access to this wisdom, and we're going to resurrect it through ourselves right now with our kids and bring about this beautiful shift through our own lives, through our children. So I'm just going to read this. The counsel process is the most effective tool I know to capture the true strength of a diverse workforce. The best answer always appears in the center of counsel. And this is actually a guy from Xerox Corporation a long time ago that said this. But this is another wonderful, this is Kenny Loggins actually said this. As a result of meeting and working with Jack Zimmerman in 1978, family counsel became a regular Sunday event in my family's life. Through the practice of counsel, our then 15-year-old and 13-year-old boys learned to express themselves from the heart and developed an appetite for heartfelt communication with the people in their lives that undoubtedly served them in the years that followed. Their then 8-year-old sister and 3-year-old younger brother learned from the older siblings' example. See how it trickles down. And were amazingly excited to sit for long periods of time just to be included in the privilege of family counsel. That's Kenny Loggins that said that for this book. So there's just, this is a system that originated with all of our ancestors, right? All of our ancestors. So this book has been around for a while. So that's the way of counsel. And you can see there's a beautiful circle here. It looks like maybe a men's group. I mean, that's what we need. We need men's groups, we need boys groups, we need girls groups, we need women's groups, and then we need whole village groups where all all, men and women and boys and girls are all together at different ages to learn how to socialize in a healthy, balanced way, organic way, free of distortion. So that's one really wonderful reference. This is also another great book, Grandmother's Counsel, The World. Women elders offer their vision for our planet. This is an amazing book because it's bringing us back into the wisdom of the grandparents, the ancient archetype of the grandmothers and the grandfathers. And how we can begin this process now is maybe reflecting on your own connection with your grandparents, if you had one. And how was it? What were the distortions? What was great about it? And looking forward to being a wisdom keeper, an elder, a grandparent, if you're not already, in the future. But it's really important to connect with this incredible wisdom of the grandmothers. And what has come through is this shield, the shield of the grandmothers. And it's a medicine shield that's actually a beautiful crystalline grid that is coating the earth. And it's part of this year of 2022, Divine Mother here to support us in the most chaotic aspects of the shift so that we can hold our priorities in check, regardless of what's going on, in the dissolution of society. So that's another great resource. This one's wonderful, Nurturing Spirituality in Children, simple hands-on activities. This is for younger kids all the way through. And this is Peggy Joy Jenkins. Yeah, indispensable in developing children's self-esteem and a balanced life. It's from Jack Canfield, the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. Mindful Games. 60 fun activities, sharing mindfulness and meditation with children, teens, and families. And this one, very important to restore our connection to the earth. Circle Round, Raising Children in Goddess Traditions. So Starhawk, Diane Baker, and Ann Hill. Families will find this book an enduring friend and reliable advisor. So just to share this, in our rushed, stressed society, it's sometimes difficult to spend meaningful time as a family, right? Goddess tradition embraces the wheel of life, the never-ending cycle of birth, growth, love, fulfillment, and death. Each turn of the wheel is presented here in 8 holidays spanning the changing seasons, in rites of passage for life transitions, and the elements of fire, air, water, earth, and spirit. Circle Round is rich with songs, rituals, handicrafts, or cooking projects, and read aloud stories. So that's what I'm going to cover today. That's just what we're going to begin with, because this is such a massive topic. And again, I want to avoid things that will be censored. So these are the initial blueprints of conscious parenting, the foundations of conscious parenting, which is self-care of the parents, doing your healing work and your own presence practice for yourself so that then you can be there as a clear conduit for your children. Conscious communication, leading by example. These are all kind of one and the same because it starts with us. When we're present, then we can lead by example, which our children are always watching, right? How we're dealing with things. This is going to give them the skills to navigate as well. And then the conscious communication of setting up kind of a ritual check-in with one another. And then bringing in mindfulness. There are many resources to do this. We have to come back to a simplification. So this is going to be my final piece. My final piece on this is getting rid of the technology. This is a big one for people, so take a deep breath with it, okay? But our kids do not need smartphones. If you need a phone for security and you want to make sure that they're okay when they're out and about, great, get them a burner phone that you can text and call on. But we've got to get our kids off the technology, because all of these different apps, all of the social media, I don't care. Look at the statistics. Look at the mental illness that is happening right now. Look at the distortions that our children are being exposed to on so many different levels. It is absolutely disgusting, right? So our children do not need smartphones. They do not need social media. We have to refer back to the elders and to the ancient ways. It's simplifying. Look at the pygmies, okay? Let's go the most dichotomy we could ever possibly go. Let's look at the pygmies who live out in Africa, right? And they're completely removed from society. They don't have fear. They don't have anger. They don't have greed. Everyone has what they need. Everyone sings and is in this divine harmony with one another. Why? Because they do not have basically portals to hell in their daily life, okay? Barbara Marciniak said it best with comes to technology and the smartphone. She said, you do not put the tools of the gods in the hands of children. And I see people, their babies are on phones, like smartphones at the grocery store. Kids are watching cartoons on smartphones. It's absolutely horrifying to me. And there's no judgment with this. It's just ignorance. People don't know any better, I guess. For me, it's like I'm always running it through that ancient filter of, did our grandparents do this? Did our parents do this? How did they live without this? Well, they live just fine, actually. So if you need to have a phone for security reasons, great. But save yourself a lot of money and save your kids so much, just so much exposure to the darkest shit ever by getting them off the smartphones. And yeah, I know they're addicted. That's the whole point. That's why they've been created, so that we can all be addicted and have this like squid-like entity sucking our face and sucking our attention and having us be distracted by the most carnal, base, distorted, dark content ever. That's what's going on with social media for the kids. Okay. It's just, yeah. So I'm going to end it at that. Deep breath. Thank you so much for joining me here. We will go deeper on this, but I wanted to give some kind of a support system right now, because we have to start taking care of ourselves and start taking care of our kids. The kids are the future. I don't think any of us have consciously had children to let the state raise them into statists, right? Orwellian, programmed AI. I don't think so. Not on my watch. So, another thing that's really important that I wanted to share is that it will be very supportive for you, very helpful for you if you're keeping an eye on the space weather, because as the solar activity continues, this is radiation that's raining down on us, and it is a lot for the nervous system. It's a lot for every part of us. It's going to affect our psychology. It's going to affect our emotions, and then everything going on in the world. So it's really important to track the space weather. You want to look up the KP index every day. It's updated every 3 hours. If you Google KP index, that's measuring the geomagnetic storms, the geomagnetic activity. And so there you're going to see charts. It's going to show you what's going on in the magnetosphere right now. How hardcore is the radiation from the sun, from all the solar flare activity right now? All of this is for our expansion of consciousness, but it is extremely challenging physically, psychologically, and emotionally. And we need to be on top of it so that we know what's happening, so that we can then prepare our children if they need to rest, if they need to stay home. This is another reason why we're homeschooling right now, is that sometimes, we're not sleeping, or we're having nausea or headaches or insomnia, extreme fatigue from all of this solar activity. And the solar maximum started in 2019 and is going to continue into 2025. So it's just begun. So these are all things to take into consideration of, what can be affecting us emotionally, psychically, all the different layers of our being. And we really have to just be the watchman on the wall looking at all of it. So it is an immense task. Being a parent is one of the most incredible, I think for me, if not the most magical thing I have ever been blessed to do, is to be a mom. And at this time, it seems like everything is coming for our kids. So we have to say no and stand up and be vigilant, right? And have good boundaries and use our voices to stand up and to come together, and continuing with the self-care so that we can sustain this and thrive as we continue to go forward. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you later on, and we'll go deeper in this topic. Just check the community tab for updates. We'll do some lives privately on a private platform for that. So thank you so much. I hope this helps. Please leave comments if you have questions on specific topics that you're dealing with, right? So thank you so much for joining me for this, and I will see you soon.